couple of we're going to give it a couple of minutes before we actually start. But I thought maybe if you wouldn't mind just putting into the chat where you're from, your name, where you're from, what's your role, and what you might want to, what you're looking to get out of this session. That would be wonderful if you could do that. Let's see.
And Eileen, I did forget to ask you, do you want to wait till the end for questions and such, or are you just going to be throughout the whole presentation?
Oh, yeah, throughout the whole presentation.
Okay.
I do have, I'll kind of go through a couple of things. I'll, ask for audience participation.
Okay, perfect.
I try to do that. It doesn't always work on Zoom, but I will give it a try. Okay.
Perfect. Sounds like a wonderful session we're about to attend.
We'll see. We'll see.
I have faith in you.
I think sometimes folks bank on the fact that it's going to be recorded so they can check it later.
Right, right. And for the three that have joined us, thank you today. We are going to give it just another minute because our presentation in the last hour did run over a little bit. So I'm sure people are running for water and trying to get all connected in. So let's give it another minute and then I'll go ahead and introduce you, okay?
Sounds great. And I'm going to do one other. I'm going to pull up another. Oh.
All righty. Oh, we have one more that would like to come in, and I think we'll get started after that. So,
Great.
Welcome everyone. Today we have Eileen Grodziak, and she is here to, and I lost my notes. Okay, if I make this mistakes first, then there will be none left for you to take on. So she will be talking to us today about show and tell, visual representation of learning through photo narration. So go ahead and take it away. We're offering everybody to chat if they'd like, if they want to ask questions either in the chat, then we'll just move along. And we are recording this session. Take it away, Eileen.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll just let you know that I'm an instructional designer. I work at Penn State. Obviously, we are Penn State. I work at the Smeal College of Business, but for many years, I worked at one of the smaller campuses and did a lot of collaboration with faculty. And this presentation is one of those collaborations that has continued, even though I'm at Smeal College of Business at this time. So let me begin. I'd love to know where you're from, what colleges you're from, what's your role, and if you would humor me, I'd love to see, if you could just put that in the chat, that would be wonderful. And now let me share my screen. This is always, come on. And I'm going to do desktop 2. Let's try this. Give me, just a minute. Just a minute. Set this up. Okay. Desktop 2. Let's see if I can find this. And share. And do you see my PowerPoint? Yes, I think you do.
Yep,
And
it's there.
Just put it into present mode. Yay. Okay. It doesn't look exactly perfect. It's just that it'll be easier for me to switch between screens. Okay. So Sandy, Kile, and I have, well, actually, I heard about this and then recommended this methodology for assessment and also research to my colleague, Professor Sandy Kile. So let's start. What I'd like you to do, I hope that you participate. We only have a couple of us. What I'm going to ask you to do is think about what is learning. what's your understanding of learning? We all are about student learning and facilitating student learning. So what's your understanding of it? What's your understanding of learning? Take a minute to think about that. Then what I'm going to ask you to do is either from an online source or, something at your desk. It's just something where you are. Take a picture. You could take a quick picture, or you could, find an image online. And I'm going to ask you to share an image of what you think, just something anywhere. You can look around yourself. Is there something that makes you think of learning and your understanding of learning? And what would that be? What would that be? And what I'm going to ask you to do is then, to find that picture. And then I'm going to ask you to either share it in chat, you can share it in chat, or you can use this Google slide to share it. Maybe chat, we have a small group, so maybe chat is fine, and then I'll transfer them over onto a Google slide. But if you thought of learning and look around where you are, or find something online, what picture would you use to illustrate that? And why would you choose that picture? Let's see. Let me see if I can pull up my chat here. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes, and in the meantime, let's see what my chat says. Focus on. Okay, so now I can read, read where you are. Fort Collins. Oh, Wilkes-Barre. Kathy, so you're right around the corner from me. CCCS. So I wonder where CCCS is. I don't know where that is. And University of Idaho. Oh, Kathy. Oh, of course. I know Griff very well. Oh, my goodness. What a small world. Very nice to meet you. Is he in the background? Too funny. Okay, so for those of you who just joined us, what I've asked everyone to do is to think about the concept of learning, of student learning. What is that? What's your understanding of learning, of student learning? And then find a picture that represents student learning. It could be something, just in your, right in front of you at your desk, in your workspace, or it could be something that you find online. What would be an image that you would put to student learning? That's a tough one. I've done this with faculty, and I'll use teaching philosophy. It might be a little bit easier, but we don't all have faculty in here, and we're learning designers. So what's our concept of learning, and how would we illustrate that? So I'm going to put my little timer on, and I'll give 1 more minute. How's that? And I hope you participate. If you don't, that's okay. We've got lots to talk about. Okay, and if anybody has just joined us, I'm just asking you to think about learning, and either in your own workspace right now, see if you can capture a picture and share it. You can share it in the group chat, or you can share it in the Google Doc. And I'm going to leave this up. Oh, I'm going to actually share the link. Here, I can share the link. Google slide to add photo of what learning.
We are still seeing your Zoom chat. We are not seeing anything else, Eileen.
You're only seeing my, wait, what do you mean? You're seeing,
Share and slide or Zoom chat. Were you wanting to show us something on your screen?
oh, my heavens, I didn't know that. Oh, wait, stop share.
And now try it.
I
It
was,
should.
oh, I'm so sorry. It
No,
changed
it's
it.
not you, it's Zoom. So,
Is it Zoom? Oh, I'm so sorry. So
nope.
have you seen this at all? Have you seen this slide at
We
all?
see the share and the slide or the Zoom chat. We're seeing your bit.ly.
Okay, that's exactly what I
Oh,
want
I
you to see.
apologize. I apologize. I miscued.
Okay, that's exactly what I want you to see. And I'm going to actually put the link into chat
Okay.
because as I move along, if somebody else wants to participate, they'll have the link. You can just repost it again. What learning? Add a photo of what learning means to you, represents learning. What represents? And why? And here's the link. Okay, so now it's in the chat. Now I'll move forward. And what I'm going to do is I am going to switch this. See if I do this right. Oh, we got one. Thank you so much. Okay. Oh, we've got more. Whoa, there we go. Okay. And so, Julie, I'm just going to ask you if you would just repost this, this link to
Okay.
anyone who has joined us,
Okay.
and they can participate. And I'm hoping that you're seeing the Google slide. What are you seeing? I guess I have to stop sharing.
We are seeing the Google slide.
Okay,
So,
you are seeing the Google slide.
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about, yes. I didn't mean to panic you. Sorry.
Okay, great, 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 great. Okay, great. Yeah, if you could just add a little text message, a little text box and write why. Oh, not seeing that come through yet. Oh, and I see another one. I see another. Yeah, I guess it just takes a little while to come through the internet. It's wonderful, but sometimes it's a little slow. Oh, you had to download it before you could upload. Oh, that's okay. Well, kind of weird. All right. I mean, you could throw it into chat too. I just provided some options. I had one time I did this and nobody could, I don't know, they couldn't get to the Google slide. Okay, you teach software. All right. Perfect. Okay. Neurological pathway. Yeah, look at all the different representations, I love this. All right, and then yeah, let's go to the next one. I see some. Oh, this is lovely. Very, very cool. Yeah, that certainly does look a little different than learning does today, right? Oh, this is perfect. Okay. So I'm curious, somebody added this bookshelf. Oh, there it is. I put my collection books to find the record of knowledge contained in books to be a great way to learn. All right. So just a couple of us, and look at how different our interpretation of learning is. Or, just what comes to mind. How might that translate to working with our students? Okay, so let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation. Well, what you just did is exactly what we're going to be talking about. Photo narration. It's an arts-based methodology. And we have a focused attention. So your focused attention for this little activity was learning, learning, student learning. And then you look for a representation. In this case, I asked for a photo, a capture. And then there's some type of a reflection. So why you chose it. Okay. Some of the descriptions were maybe a little more concrete, but when we do this in a more formal setting with the classroom, we ask for the reflections. Well, why did you choose that? Why does that represent learning to you? And then the learning that's demonstrated as a result of I use learning, so I confuse myself. Okay. Now, why is this important? When I talk with students, and we do, because we have done some research on this, when I talk to students to get to secure their informed consent, I often ask them, well, where are you getting your news? Where do our students get their news, right? And I say, you go to every morning, you go down to the end of your driveway and you grab the newspaper and you bring it in and have it with your breakfast, right? And of course, they all start laughing. Well, no. So where are they consuming? They're consuming news. They're getting it on internet sources, and many of those news pieces include some type of visual that they're using to either through video or through images. So visual literacy is really important in today's world. And then, visual representation provides opportunities for representation of learning that can be more diverse than simply words. And what's visual representation really good for? Abstract concepts. So learning, that's a really abstract concept. We all know what it is, but to actually represent it, to describe it, it's more abstract than concrete. So when we talk about some of the arts-based methods, there's photo voice, there's photo story, there's autoethnography, there's photo elicitation and photojournals. These are all represented in the literature. And Kelly and Kortegast, they I didn't put the reference in the follow-up, but if I'm sure you can find it pretty easily, through Google Scholar. But they encouraged educators to use some of these arts-based methodologies, and so photo narration is definitely within this sphere. Now, how did I latch onto this? Well, I was already doing this. I teach one class, and I heard this webinar by a sociologist from University of Denver. So here we are with Denver, and she had us in this webinar do exactly what I asked you to do, using the word courage. So what does courage mean to you? And I immediately took this. It was so powerful. And so what I did was I immediately took it back and I've been using it with my students, with my one class that I teach each semester ever since. And I do it for a lot of different reasons. So what I would do is I would have the students submit an image that they found online that represented whatever we were covering at the time. I've used this for courage a lot. And then I would ask them to I would put it all together on a PowerPoint slide like this. This would be for a live class now, but I've also done this online where they then have to explain, well, why did you select that? And I'd use that as their discussion format. So then when we got together, you could do this in a synchronous class, in a synchronous online class as well. And this is what we did. We explained why we selected the image. What was it about courage that, made us think of courage when we saw this image? And then I had a class where the students did do the homework. And I was like, oh, I still want to do this. So now what do I do, right? So I had these re-engage cards, and there's lots of, they have a group of these online through Chad Littlefield is a presenter, speaker, and he created this through Reconnect. And they're cards, but there's also an online version. And there's lots of other places that have like online cards or online pictures, or you can even just have a collection of pictures. And I had the students when we started our class session, I just said, pick one of these images, and then we had a discussion about what courage was to them. So I've already been doing this kind of thing with my class. So what was the shift that made me think, oh, I could actually use this as an assessment method, and I could actually use it for research? Well, there was this article that I was alerted to. It was a happiness project, and it was a study abroad. It was a study abroad project that was done within our university, and students from the United States and from France submitted an image that represented happiness to them. So if you were to just look at the two sets of images, I wonder what do you see that's different? And which one do you think are the United States students, and which ones do you think are the French students? So I'll put a minute. I'll start a minute. So I'll give you a minute. Just take a look. What do you see that's kind of different between the two groups? And which one do you think is the French, and which one do you think is the United States? And what might be some differences that you see between the two? Oh, I didn't start it. Oh, jeez. I had this wonderful timer, but you have to hit the start button. Yeah, there's more pets and animals on the left. I hope this is your name, Jeannie. Is that correct? Thinks the French is on the right, which would make the United States on the left. Anybody have a different opinion of that? Okay. So Patrick agrees as well. Well, you both are correct. Yes, definitely the French is on the right. The United States students are on the left. Yeah, lots more pets. Faces of people, where you don't have as many. A lot of groups on the right. Yeah, so we could see some differences even within groups of students and how they represent culture. How they how their culture impacts, or the impact of their culture on how they represent a particular concept. So when I saw that this was a research project, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm already doing this. We should be doing this, right? All right. Okay. So I work with a faculty member, she's communication, Sandy. She wasn't able to be, this time didn't work for her, unfortunately, after we had already put the times in. So she's already done this project, and we've really struggled to try to capture what students are learning as a result of this interview project. She teaches communication. It's a general communication course that all students have to take. And she incorporates interview with a professional as part of the class. And it's not something that's normally done in the essential speech class. She has a background in recruiting, so she really feels that this is an important component to incorporate interpersonal communication as well as public speaking communication. But she's had some really good anecdotal results as a result of incorporating this. So we wrote a paper that kind of talks a little bit about this in Isodal Journal, where we talked about interviewing skills. And then in the past, we've used reflective journals, and it kind of got at some, but that was a lot of work. So what we did when I saw this, I was like, what if we give this a try? And so what we had students do was, just on Canvas, submit the representation of what their career aspiration, and if they didn't have a career aspiration, something that they were interested in, because a lot of students who are in this class are first and second year, and they might not have their, their major quite picked out yet. And then at the end, they would submit a photo and a narration of what that, what their career aspiration looked like afterwards. Okay, so we did ask them not to use AI. And the reason was the first time we did this, it wasn't, AI wasn't around, not quite to the same extent that it is now. We asked them just to find an image, either they could capture it themselves or use something from online, but they had to include the link of where they got it from. So they had to, and then because of the IRB, we asked them not to include faces. Now you'll see that there are some faces included, but these were images that were already previously provided online. And for any report, actually, when I've done this, I usually have these, grayed out. But tell me, on the left is, an image, or some images that were submitted before they interviewed with the professional. And then on the right are the images that they submitted after they had their interview with a professional. So what do you think some differences are? Like, what do you see? What do you see here in these two before and after? Here, I'll give 30 seconds. How about 30 seconds? Okay, Jeannie says, yeah. Yeah, so this is exactly what I said. It was so amazing. It was so amazing for me to see this, because it was like, whoop, Now, not all of the images, this was the first cohort that we did. Not all images showed this, but this was pretty stark. And these were, a full record. So it was one student. So there were 3 students here. And you can tell they were engineering students. So it was a lot of talk about tools, a lot of representation of tool and programs. And then all of a sudden it was, humanized. It's exactly what I thought, humanized. Okay, so here's another set. Here's another set. So what do you think? What do you think here? What do you see here? Let's do another 30 seconds. What do you think? What do you see? Stop that faster. I've got to stop that faster. All right. So let's see. So for this student, it was a marketing, very chaotic and right side has come. Well, this student was talking about, how people work. It was shortly after COVID, we were back in, but they were, thinking in terms of working at home. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, no, it's a lot more about interpersonal skills, and even more fun too, more fun. So we thought this was kind of an interesting before and after. And here's another one that's kind of similar, but not quite the same. And again, kind of like the space where where the student might be working, or, in their profession. So, what I'll be doing in the future, where I'll be working. And then afterwards was very interesting. He was talking about, the parts that you don't see. So I thought that, So let's look again. Here's a teacher. Very similar. The components of it, right? The components of it, what they'll be doing, who they'll be working with. And then all of a sudden, afterwards, very, very much broader understanding of what their chosen field might entail. So motivation. All right, and here's one final one. So for this young man, finance, of course, we have a lot of finance majors, what they would be doing. And then afterwards, this is kind of a little weird, the image, but what he was saying was that actually there's a lot more that I can do, and there might be other opportunities that would be beyond just the scope of my finance degree. So to be able to capture these kinds of outcomes is really quite interesting. Some other things that we found was the fact that students could represent themselves in ways that we hadn't thought of. So for in the first image, the student actually expressed appreciation for the ability to be able to represent themselves. Here we have and again, students used they were finding we just opened up whatever you find online. As long as you provide the sources, we'll accept them. But it was kind of interesting to see what they actually came up with. So when we talk about critical thinking skills, like how do we represent, like how do we capture the critical thinking that students are doing? And so we're starting to look at evaluating the images that students have submitted in the broad categories of concrete, and you can kind of see what was concrete. And then the fact that, some of them kind of moved to the abstract. So this spider web, this was a supply chain student. It's not the tools and the trucks and all the logistical pieces of supply chain, but a web, a spider web is a more abstract understanding, and supply chain is often referred to as a web of resources. But what we're really looking for are the critical, and how many students move into that critical understanding of what their profession will be. Now, the image isn't great on this critical one, but the thinking behind it, and some of this might have to do with where students are in their career too. So some students are taking this course as upper level students, some students are taking this course as lower level students, but still we're able to kind of map, like, where are we in this continuum of concrete, abstract, and critical, and then how might we move it to more of a critical thinking outcome. All right, so I have a question for you. After you've seen this, like, how could you see this being used? Either in courses that you teach or in courses that you work with. Because a lot of us, I mean, this is kind of what happened to me. I was like, oh my gosh, I've been working with this course, and I think this could be a really useful tool. Now with ChatGPT and all of the AI work, in an interdisciplinary course, it isn't really necessarily a writing intensive course. I've actually expanded use of arts-based methodologies, because it seems to be getting at more of what students are thinking rather than just getting splat on the page from AI. So I'm just curious. Oh yeah. And Julie says, if you're welcome to, yeah, Patrick, please.
Hi. So I think, a lot of us are, at least in the instructional design space, we're always looking for new recommendations that we can give for instructors on ways that they can offer greater variety in their types of assessments and ways that they are looking to measure student learning or progress towards learning objectives within a course. So, I mean, honestly, that's part of the reason why I decided to come to this session, was because I was curious to see about this kind of methodology and for an assessment, and get another idea in that quiver to suggest to instructors when they're looking for something that is maybe more helpful than just a traditional, multiple choice quiz or short essay or something that's maybe not going to be as helpful or maybe as robust, especially as we're talking, like you mentioned now, with AI and trying to find assessments that are robust in the face of AI, that are not easily kind of just sloughed off with an AI response or something that a student can conveniently just bypass having to actually engage with the assessment. So
Yeah. And I'm just showing you the one example, but I've been using this now in my own course, which is an interdisciplinary course, in a variety of ways. And then I was talking to a business law professor who teaches an online course, and kind of just mentioned it to her because we were talking about some of the challenges with AI, and she says, "Oh, maybe I could use that." So you just never, I mean, you never know. And I would have never thought that something like that could be done in a business law class. But if we do kind of have to think out of the box a little bit, and how might this be helping us to meet students where they are as well. And I think that came through in some of the responses that we got back from students, because it was like, oh, they're representing themselves. They're appreciating the fact that they can represent themselves. And that was an eye opener. I hadn't expected that kind of a response. And, in addition to something like this, what other arts-based methodology might we be able to use? And some of us, some of our faculty have been doing things, but they don't even realize that it could be something that, oh, I'm not able to, great assessment to be in our first year foundations courses. Oh yeah, definitely. Sometimes these are things that people have been doing for a while. You don't realize you could even use them as an assessment tool. I was at a session, I was at a conference session, and it was on arts, because I've been doing this, my ears popped up, arts-based methodologies or arts-based assessments, and they talked about songs. And using that as an assessment, I was like, oh my gosh, of course people have been doing these things for a while. Like, you could actually use that. Again, how do we get students to connect to their learning, what they're learning, to what they're currently doing, their current life. And imagery is one way that we can do that. So how might we use AI? So that's like a whole nother set of variables, if we're doing research. If you do an AI kind of thing. And some images now online, they'll have a little AI, like Adobe Images will have that little AI tag on it. So and I have gotten some, we have gotten some submissions that do have AI, that are AI generated, but they're freely available online. So we made it, but they kind of have to choose, they kind of have to look at a few options and then choose, rather than just putting 2 or 3 words in and it pops up. So, how might we do this with AI? I don't know. I don't know. But making students have to give the website of where they got the image, that kind of helps a little bit. And then having them capture it. That's been really interesting. Just even having students capture something, from their own, like Patrick, you did the bookshelf, yeah, first year foundation course, yeah. And actually I did use it with my I taught a first year class in 2021 when or 2022, I guess the second no, 2021. So that was that was like December. I saw that webinar. So the following fall, I used the same thing in the first year seminar. Yeah, and I think what I had them do is I had them represent what they learned during the time in the course, and it was really fascinating to hear what they came up with. You know, and the images. Like I remember there was an image of two ATVs, and you look at them and you're like, how does that connect? But you know, once the student explained why, you know, how that image represented what they learned in the course, made perfect sense. Made perfect sense. And you know, how else can you do it? They can also verbalize their responses as well, instead of just you know, typing it in. And now when you have large classes, you know, is that as easy? You know, these are all considerations. So, all right, let's see what do I have next? I don't know what I have next. Oh, what considerations are needed? If you were to use images, what considerations might be needed? Give us 30 seconds. And again, you know, you're welcome to unmute if you'd like to. What kinds of considerations? Well, certainly the first consideration, copyright, fair use, and proper citation, right? Right. Proper citation is really, really important. And it's an opportunity to address that too, especially with first year, you know, first year students, like first year foundation course. Absolutely. And one thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to take it a step further, and I'm going to provide students at the end of the semester, they do this in the course that I currently teach. And what I'm doing is I'm going to send them to particular repositories for images. So Unsplashed, that are not, you know, that are not part of the, I think it's, I forget whatever Unsplash. There's some Unsplash. There's Pictobay that are Creative Commons. There's Flickr that are Creative Commons. So there's some repositories that we can send students to find images as well. And that's another tactic. We didn't use that in this particular study because it was the first time we had done it. But you know, there certainly some opportunity for talking about that. The faces is another one. That's a big one, especially if they're capturing their own images, because we want to be sure that we have consent for capturing of you know, identity. Any other considerations you might consider? You might think that we would have to consider. I think providing options to students is helpful. You know, if we only tell students that they have to capture something, that might be an issue for students, you know, given what we experienced with Zoom during COVID, and you know, place and equity, that could be an issue. So providing options is helpful, I think, is really important. Another way, one of the things that I had heard in the conference presentation that I went to, because the particular subject that they were covering, over the course of a couple of semesters, they were getting very similar imagery. So what they did was they created a curation of images, and you could even do a curation of images that are more concrete, that are more abstract, you know, that would fall into a concrete representation of the concept, and then an abstract representation of the concept, and then a critical representation of the concept. So if you curated, you know, say 3 images that were more concrete, 3 images that were more abstract, 3 images that were more critical, and then had students select them based on their understanding. And then you'd be able to evaluate, where they are in their thinking about that concept. So that was something else that we kind of came upon, as we've been working with this. So I think that there's definitely some opportunity for using these types of methods in our courses, whether they're online, in person, hybrid, because we have the tools to be able to do that. And it's not something that requires being in person for it. It's something that can be. I even had a student. This is years ago. She would start. I mean, not a student, a faculty member. She would start her discussion for her class, her introduction discussion board was, she would post a picture and just say, "What can you tell me about this picture?" And that was her opening discussion. Well, what can you tell me about this picture? It kind of gives you a little bit of insight about this, about the student. So, we don't have to, it doesn't necessarily have to be, a formal assessment, but a way of capturing our students' humanity. Really, our students' humanity can be a nice way of doing so.
Eileen, I will let you know we've got about 3 minutes to the end of session, but we can go over a little bit over if you have.
I'm done. I'm
Oh.
done. Does anybody have questions? I know it's a small group.
A very quiet small group.
I know, and nobody likes. It was really funny because I was teaching, during COVID, and one of the concepts that we cover is bystander. I can't even think of it. My brain's fried. But bystander intervention, how nobody wants to, everybody thinks somebody else will go first. And I actually had a student say that. She said, "Oh, this is kind of like bystander intervention. Nobody wants to say anything." Okay, Mary put a clap. Thank you, Mary. I hope this was helpful.
And Patrick intervened a little bit, so I appreciate his comments as well too. And I know others had great information in the chat as well. So,
and if you, capture, do this, try it. And we've done this in professional development. We've done this in classes. It's a great tool to be able to use. Accessibility. That's actually a really good question. So I wonder if having a curated group of images that have alt text and long description would be a really a way to capture this type of activity in a way that fulfills all the accessibility requirements for an online class. Yeah, that was a really good question. Thank you so much, Patrick, because I hadn't thought of that quite in the same manner. Yeah. But how do we get students? Well, and another thought too, it would be a great trainer on alt text. Well, Arizona State University has a wonderful, and there might be others, wonderful alt text generator. It generates the alt text and the long description. It's great. I don't have it on my, on me right at the moment, but if you contact me, I'll be happy to share. Let me just I'll put my email in here. But you could have students do that. We have to teach students how, why accessibility is important. They're going to be using it in their work and in their work lives. So have them generate the text when they submit it. They can generate the alt text and the description and say, well, does this description match the image? That is a visual literacy. Yeah, exactly. So again, we have to think out of the box a little bit. But thank you so much for your comments. That's really helpful. And that does, kind of expand the conversation about using tools like this. So thank you, everyone.
I thank everybody for being here. We do have a wonderful keynote speaker again at 1 o'clock this afternoon, if you can make that, plus any of the other sessions that we have. The ELCC have done an excellent job getting everything together. I did put in the comments to ask you to complete the survey if you could. Your comments are important to us, so we know what we can do for you in the future. Okay, everybody have a great day.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Julie.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being here, Eileen.
Okay, bye-bye.